Whenever this week's Parsha comes around, I get very excited. VaYeishev is a beautiful story. It's a big chunk of the Joseph saga with which the book of Genesis of Breshit concludes. I had a student once who read the entire Parsha, and she worked so hard on getting all of the words just right. I feel like I know this one maybe a little bit better than others because I got to study with her. The beginning of the parsha begins with a strange verse: "VaYeishev Yaakov be'eretz migurei aviv be'eretz Canaan." That Jacob sojourned. He visited in a land. He lived in a land where his ancestors had resided. But the language that the Torah uses to talk about being in a place is fascinating. The beginning of it says VaYeishev. Jacob settled in a place where his ancestors migurei, where they just resided, meaning he wanted to settle down in a place where his ancestors were unable to settle. And that strikes me very much in this week's Parsha, because in the week that we are living, especially in the Jewish community in North America, we have suffered quite a lot. And we're not the only ones who have. But within our week, we have had the destruction of Torah scrolls in a synagogue in Beverly Hills, which came just 4 days after a gun massacre in Jersey City, attacking a kosher marketplace, but not only a kosher marketplace, the fabric of society, including the death of a policeman who was there to protect people. Now, I share all of that because it's real. It's in our week. And we would like very much to settle down, just like Jacob sought to at the beginning of this week's Parsha. He was unable. And the Midrash, Jewish imagination, says that God responds to the desire to settle down with the following: you can't. That's not what this world includes. We don't get to settle down if we mean to be part of this world, living with eyes open. So toward that, I wanted to share the very final word of this week's Torah portion. It's in Genesis, in chapter 40, the very final verse. In Hebrew, it's V'lo zachar Sarah mashkim et Yosef vayishkachehu. Now, if you know the Joseph story, you know that when he is sent to jail for a crime he did not commit, he encounters a baker and a butcher, and he hears the dreams of both of them. And when he hears the dream of the butcher, he says, sorry, not the butcher, the wine server, the butler, he says, you are going to be freed from jail, and Pharaoh will bring you up. Remember me. When that dream comes true, according to Joseph's interpretation, the butler is freed. And it says in this verse, he didn't remember Joseph and he forgot him. It's a doubling of language, which, if you pay attention to Torah, actually happens a few times, especially around the question of memory. One of the other times this happens is when we are called to remember the atrocity committed against us, the Israelites, by the tribe of Amalek. We are called to Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek. Remember what Amalek did to you, hurting us in our most vulnerable place. Remember Amalek, al tishkach, don't forget. But we're also called to erase Amalek, timche et zecher Amalek. The question of how to remember something that's very painful is at least the subject that I wanted to reflect on for the moment, which is to say, I wish I could just forget the things that hurt. We can't. That's not what this world includes. We are called to face it, eyes open, full hearts, full broken hearts, so that we can be part of repairing what is wrong in the world. One of the things that happened in the attack on the synagogue, thank God it was empty when it happened this past Shabbat, was that the assailant came in and tore Torah scrolls. And yet the police report said there were no overt acts of anti-Semitism. We know that next to the human body, which of course is the holiest Torah scroll in our lives, anything you call sacred cannot match the sanctity of a life. After that, the tearing of a Torah scroll is the worst blasphemy, the worst anti-Semitic attack. It hurts our very souls. It hurts our very hearts. It's hatred against what makes us us. We are called to not forget, but to recognize that we have the ability, in response to hate, to hate. We also have the choice to forget it, because that's a natural inclination. And yet we know that we will not. We wish for a world where we could settle down, where there would be no pain like this. We wish we could pretend that the world that we inhabit has no moments like this, and yet you and I know, as do so many other groups, especially in today's America, and especially around the world today, Ein bayit she'ein sham met. There is no place where death hasn't touched or threatens. And so in this moment where anti-Semitism is certainly on the rise, and Jewish vigilance to protect our own tribe is absolutely paramount, it cannot be to the exclusion of recognizing that everyone else is feeling torn too. Where they tear Torah scrolls, they will assault a human being for being different. And so our response has to be a recognition that we cannot settle down, not in this moment, not in the next. And even though it would be so much easier to just forget some of what's going on, we cannot. The butler forgot for 2 years, and Joseph languished in jail. Only after those 2 years did the doubling of forgetting and not remembering somehow become undone, triggered by the dreams of someone else, Pharaoh in this case. And of course, as you and I might know, the story ends up with Joseph saving the day. But we do not rely on miracles unless it's from each other. May we remember what it is to feel torn. May we acknowledge what is tearing at us and everyone these days. May we be part of a new kind of remembering, where I remember you and you remember me, where I remember that the pain I feel this week, you might feel too, and I want to protect you and me from it next week too. May we believe in our strength. May we remember better than we have before, and may we weave ourselves and each other together and Torah scrolls back together faster than anything can tear us apart. Because in that way, we might actually find a way to settle down, as long as we remember that in order to feel settled, I need to take care of my neighbors too.